When I became the chairman, we made some alterations to the artwork here. Part of what I was trying to do was I felt it would be best to highlight the people that we serve rather than the past committee chairman. I feel strongly that we should be inspired by those who, by the American people, and that's who we serve. They have done great things over generations of time, and those are the types of people that we should be inspired by. So I'd like to introduce these pieces of art as, again, we get this next panel ready, and I will tell you that they are all real photography and real photos. I'd like to start here with this one. It's of the Ben Franklin Bridge in the Philadelphia skyline. It was taken by a photographer by the name of Charlie Lanch. It's the Ben Franklin Bridge that spans the Delaware River connecting Philadelphia with Camden, New Jersey. Contrasting the urban setting, we have this new photo that was taken actually in my congressional district in Utah. It does look like a painting, but it's an actual photograph that was taken in January. It was taken along the Provo River with the Mount Timpanogos there in the distance, and we live in a very beautiful setting, and I think the contrast between the urban setting and a more rural setting is part of what I wanted to highlight. Going here on this side, this is a photo that was taken, it was first published in March of 1966. Warren Lafler was a photographer for U.S. News and World Report. The images of postal workers loading mail bags into trucks for delivery, and a good number of people for decades, generations, have been doing good work in the Postal Service, and one of our core areas of responsibility. This next photo back over here is of Utah copper miners. We've had people who have been in the mining industry across this nation, whether it's coal or copper or whatnot. This was first published back in 1942. They're using a rock drill machine at the Bingham mine in the Bingham Canyon in Utah. This next photo was taken in Afghanistan. The American flag capturing the morning's first rays of sunlight as it is hoisted from one of the peaks of the Cowtail Paymore Mountain on the outskirts of Kabul, Afghanistan, in honor of Veterans Day. It was shot on November 11th, 2010. Not a professional photographer, but that's one of the most beautiful patriotic shots I've ever seen. And really appreciate the service that Paul Bingham offered this country and the photo that he took that day honoring Veterans Day above the hills there in the mountains outside Kabul. We have had thousands and thousands of Americans serve overseas and in Afghanistan, and we honor them and should be thinking of them regularly. This next photo at the back of the room is actually a civil rights protesters on one of 3 marches from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama. This photo was first published in 1965, they tell me, and is a good reminder that people have gone through a lot of hardship, but also made a lot of progress. And I love the patriotic nature of the carrying of the flags in that photo, and appreciate the Library of Congress providing that to us as well. The next one is of the Golden Spike. Golden Spike actually happened in Utah. It was taken on May 10th, 1869, by joining the Central Pacific and Union Pacific lines at Promontory Point, Utah on May 10th, 1860. The Golden Spike was the ceremonial last spike driven in by Lalonde Stanford to join these rails to form the first transcontinental railroad across the United States, bridging the East and the West together. The next photo is really the only portrait that I would consider here, but interestingly enough, this was first published in 2006. It was from the Library of Congress. The Lincoln Memorial is obviously one of the best sites we have in this country and certainly in the United States, but when he was Congressman Lincoln, he served on the Post Office and Post Roads Committee and the Expenditures in the Department of War Committee, 2 committees that preceded the modern-day Oversight and Government Reform Committee. So interesting to me that Abraham Lincoln, when he served in the House of Representatives, served on what is now known as the Oversight and Government Reform Committee, and an inspiration to a lot of people. Moving over here, we've got 2 more. This photo was taken, comes from the Library of Congress. We're not sure who the photographer was. It was published sometime between 1914 and 1918. It's of women making and crimping fiber powder containers for 3-inch Stokes guns during World War I. It was taken at the W.C. Ritchie and Company facility in Chicago, Illinois. been, again, a great deal of sacrifice that was going on in this country, and I love the patriotic nature of that one as well. And finally, I want you to look closely at this photo if you have a chance. Excuse me. This is a steel worker on the framework of the Empire State Building high above the city, with the Chrysler Building prominently displayed in the back. Ironworker. My apologies. The photographer was Lewis Hine, and it was first published in 1930 and comes to us from the National Archives. Not exactly OSHA compliant back then. That gentleman is sitting on the precipice of death, working hard to build this country without a safety harness, without the types of things that our workers have now. But a good deal of people have made these kind of dedications and sacrifices, and I'm glad that they captured a photo of it. These are the types of people I think should be inspired in this committee, rather than just the committee chairman of past. And so we made those changes. I hope the committee appreciates that, and I'm honored to have these photos in here, and I thank the members for my indulgence. We'd now like to recognize our second panel of witnesses. Oh, pardon me. I'd like to yield to our ranking member, Mr. Cummings, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, when you told me that you were going to select some photographs, I was, I didn't know what you were going to do. But I must tell you, and all of those who had anything to do with selecting these photographs, that they are absolutely beautiful. I used to say that my father, who only had a second-grade education, but who educated all 7 of his kids, I used to say that I was inspired by his aspirations. And when we look at these pictures, the ones of hardworking Americans in the pursuit of happiness and building our country, I believe that their stories, just looking at them, should inspire all of us to be the very best that we can and to lift up their lives and the people like them, their lives. And then, you look at the other ones that show our environment. I think it should be a reminder that we do have a sacred duty to pass on to our children an environment which is just as good as or better than the one that we inherited. It's said that we do not inherit our environment from our ancestors, but we borrow it from our children. And I say the same thing about our democracy. And so, and last but not least, Mr. Chairman, you really did a hell of a job when you put the Selma one right there, because it just reminds me, every time I look at it, 4 years before that, in Baltimore, it reminded me of us marching, little kids, we were marching, trying to integrate a pool called Riverside Pool. And it was all white pool, we were beaten, but yet and still we marched in the pursuit of happiness. And so I say all that to say that I'm hoping that these photos will be an aspiration, will be an inspiration, because of the aspirations of these folks who made America what it is. Thank you very much.